Hello and welcome to the final session of Mountain Home from Fallen Halls. This is, ironically enough, our 23rd session, session 0 plus 22 play sessions. We last time did our downtime actions, and we got experience, and we saw some progress made on various things, and we talked about what we wanted to kind of do here as we head into this year in our settlement, which will be year 14, I believe, now. Because the thing says 13, so I think we go up one to 14.
Yep.
And last time you went up to tier 3, uh, put together by both the Vermain and other dwarves and so on, and the numbers have increased. You're still adjusting to that. That is what weak hold represents. We're going to kind of take up at the beginning of the year with our usual kind of go around for people calling scenes, and then we'll talk with the founders. Let me talk about what's gone on with the factions, kind of get the talk about the faction clocks. Uh, the Quranic Duchy, the Centaurs, are moving to expand again, but that's a long clock for them. So they're going to be at that for a while because they need to go to tier 5. Uh, uh, so there's that. The Ashclaw sisters, your Nolish friends, having finished their expedition, are working on tree planting, and in fact, got a critical success on that. So they are 5 out of 6 on that work of tree planting around the mountain. Our elves, the Autumn Dawn, they are working on, with the various seeds that they've been given and the seeds that they brought with them, they are working on planting and seeding the valley now that the fertility has changed here. And they're halfway out of that. The Tengu have finished their invocation of wings. I've put strike through on all of the gnomes things, since they are effectively gone as a faction, eliminated. And the human spellcasters continue to work on their joining of the lines and made a little more progress on that. So this is where we take up. There are some looming questions left over, and I'll kind of mention a few things that we've talked about. Uh, Dazin's taking of a new ability and what that looks like. We also talked about the characters talking about what comes next, about what the organization is of things to come, what that process is. There was also the question of dealing with the necromancer. And I believe Grunhild wanted to put her on trial, and that was suggested. Uh, there was the question of, like, what were the costs and the relationships with the allies. Uh, and there was a trip through the river was another thing that was requested. And of course, we'll definitely do the epilogues today for our characters to see where they go from here. Uh, I'll talk about what was rolled for our entanglements after we do that first round of scenes and things. So, Dagriel, we're going to start with you here. Beginning of the year, we're in that just into the early parts of the year. You've had that winter after the dealing with the dragon, uh, and so what scene do you want to call? Who do you want to talk to? What do you want to do?
So I know it's rumbling. I mean, there's that whole thing of wanting to go back and get some further justice or some such. So I think that I have to talk to Blossom.
And where I mean, have you kept Blossom in a prison? Have
Well,
you kept
I've
her under
not.
lock and key? Like what do you think has been done?
Um, I think that uh, that's a good idea. I mean, I'm sure that if she thinks that she's going to get hung, she would want to run away, which would mean that I might have to keep her in prison, but that is not my intent. I simply uh, wished for her to survive since she had made it so that we could survive by keeping, giving us enough intel to stop her people
So we'll
from
assume
doing
that
the thing. So yeah, I mean, we
he has
probably,
been
that's it.
placed in some kind of area that has guards, that is far enough away from anything uh like vaulty or undead or things like that, that you're less concerned about that. Perhaps
Okay,
even some runes to help prevent anything like that.
sure.
And uh, has provided, I assume, provided with paper and pens and books to read and that kind of thing.
Right. And I mean, I will go to speak with her usually. I mean, it's ridiculous in the sense of that I can't leave her down there when
Yeah,
I made this gesture. So,
she will greet you. She'll say, "How are you this day?" I assume.
hmm,
I lose
and
track of time.
she goes, I do too. And I think she will, um, like sort of listen carefully because you can kind of hear from the crystals, the speaking crystals, like what's going on, what kind of activity there is up at the top. It sort of trickles down. And she'll go, it sounds like it's late afternoon.
Ah, I haven't quite got the rhythm of things yet.
She goes, and I think that's, she goes, when the season is done, I'm going to leave.
Well, that's not good.
Uh, Do you want to come with me?
I very much doubt that your comrades would allow something like that to happen. My sense of hearing the general gist of the feeling is certainly against that.
Ah, we have not been, we have not made the arguments yet.
I think that I cannot commit to anything until I know what is happening.
That's reasonable.
I will say, much as I respect your urge to travel and see other places, I am at heart sedentary. I I have always preferred to have my own space and place and make it my own and live there and make it just so, and make any of my journeys such that uh, I could always get back to my home by the end of the day. I have been called lazy by some.
I can see that. I mean, not that you seem particularly lazy, but that someone would call you that for those things. She sort of stops and goes,
I
is there
do not
another?
I do not like change. That is an unfortunate habit with me.
Is there a place that you would like to go where you could settle then that is other than here?
Were I to be let go, that's what you're asking?
Mhm.
I rather suspect I would become that crazy old necromancer woman who lives up in the mountains, where go back to my old house and dig it out, assuming that the dragon didn't crush it underfoot,
So they'd be
uh,
about right after that, yeah.
and live there, and cackle maniacally. Perhaps people would come to me for portents and omens.
Hmm. She sort of stops and goes, "Is there a good library there?"
I have no idea what the condition of the library is at this point. Though here's the thing is, there are a lot of dead persons of my fellows who had very interesting volumes, eclectic collections, and so on. And I do hope that the winter has not entirely destroyed those objects.
Yeah. And she kind of goes like maybe I'll go take a look. It's kind of what it is.
She will gesture to you. She will say, I have spent my time here writing out a list of all of the books that I would like to have, that I would go and look for in the rubble.
All right. Um,
It is a codex of codices,
hmm,
or a codice of codex. I do not know.
see if there's anything that would keep me in one place for a while. It would be a codex of codices. And then she sort of leans and goes, "How about a rough map of what was and where they might most likely be?"
I will consider that. I have some time on my hands and such.
All right. I mean, I could at least go poke around for you, right?
I I think it would be very dangerous. There would be spells and wards and things like that, and I would suggest that you take some people, your rune mages, or perhaps some real mages, with you to see what they
See,
could.
now that's the thing that'll really get you in trouble.
I know, that's why I'm saying it here and not before any sort of broader board. But you take my meaning.
There are certainly different spheres, and many of them have more people attached than
The
others.
humans know how to deal with the kinds of wards that my people do. So
All right.
I would recommend consulting amongst them. Though I will tell you that they would probably put any books they find to the torch,
Really.
regardless of whether they are magical or not.
All right.
Was there anything else?
And I think she sort of stops and says, "I'm a little disappointed that it's come to this, but
You are no more disappointed than I.
all right."
Colin, what would you like to do?
So many different things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the final year. We have to kind of focus.
I know, right? Let's see. Well, okay. So one thing I'm going to do is send as many of the laborers as can be spared to go help the elves plant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to set your group to that. Why don't you make a tier roll? I believe we roll the tier of the settlement as a tier roll to see how that goes.
Okay.
So 3 dice now.
5.
So that's a 5. So for you, what is the most exciting thing that comes out of this sort of winter spring planting that the laborers go out and do? What is it that the elves have that interests you, or that can help something you've worked on? What is that?
Oh, so they have a plant that is pollinated by ghost bees. And Talon is immediately like, okay, we gotta build some new hives, have some ghost bees, because I have all kinds of ideas for ghost mead.
Absolutely. Certainly. Do you think the Vermain brought like
Oh
the ghost
yeah,
bees with them?
yeah, they probably did. I mean, they probably brought whatever they could, and anything that they used, including the species that they kept there. So yeah,
So there is a
and
beekeeper
I think a lot of
Vermain,
laborers
yeah.
are terrified of them.
Yeah. And what is the thing that you have to do to wear or to do to keep yourself from being stung by a ghost bee?
Hmm. I think you have to wear something red.
Okay.
They don't like the color red. Pink
Eh,
kind of works, but it's
yeah.
better if it's bright.
The young Vermain, who is the person who he's like knows about the keeping of the bees. He's the one who brought the big case along. His name is Vladislav Smidgen, and he is very excited when he realizes that you have bees down here. And then he goes and looks at your hives, and he's like, "These are very, very small and decidedly non-spectral."
Yes, yes, they're not dangerous at all. I think like the concern is at first what do ghost bees eat? What do we have anything to eat? But
Oh
it
well,
turns
no,
out
no, no, no,
the
no. It,
elves
it
do.
is, yeah. We I have a hive here. They do eat the honey, and they do feed. Though they're very particular in their pollinations. But I'm sure we can find some things. And so later on in the season, when you do find these plants that are pollinated by ghost bees, uh, do you think that like do you move a set of those plants up to the mountain, or do you take the ghost bee apiary down to the elves?
Um, I think a vermain beekeeper is probably not super attached to living underground. Unlike dwarves, they're probably more comfortable living, above ground. So I think, yeah, I think the beekeeper like sets up within, bee flying range of the elves.
Builds himself a little vermain hut, talks with the elves. The ghost bees are, tells the elves what not to do around the ghost bees. Like don't hum. Whatever you do, don't hum
Oh yeah.
when you're near a ghost bee. And like he starts working on finding other plants and flowers and things that will also be pollinated by the ghost bees. Um,
Oh,
and he will provide you with a pot of honey, ghost bee honey. What
excellent.
what is it when you look at this honey? You're like, okay, that's not normal honey. Like, what is ghost bee honey like?
It I guess let's go with the color theme again. It shifts colors. Um it's iridescent,
Mm-hmm.
so like you look at it from one angle and it looks sort of greenish, and you look at it from another angle and it looks sort of bluish.
Absolutely. Well, we'll come back to you because I am going to want to know brew wise what's going to be ghost bee mead and what that's like. Grunheld, let's come to you.
I would like to invite Tolan, Dagriel, and Dosen to an informal meeting. I probably my house is too cluttered. Probably where I do business and sort of things.
Okay.
But I will have laid out a spread of beer and food and tea and all that sort of thing.
So there you have your sort of the audience hall that you've set up for the Thane.
Please, everyone, grab something to eat. I wanted to speak with you all for a few moments to discuss our gnomish guest. Dagger, I'll keep looking at us. I keep wanting to call you that. I'm sorry.
that's my fault.
Dagriel Tolan, you've had the most contact with her before the battle. And Dolson as our speaker to the mountain. And as far as we have a sort of religious leader, I think the four of us, perhaps we could discuss a little of the situation. I had hoped that we could handle this much sooner, but with so much going on, it is unfortunate because I don't think it is. I would not have wished for them to be stuck in a cell for this length of time. However, this is someone who marched on us in war. And I wish to discuss a little of how we think that might be handled.
Okay.
Do war crimes then stand up to the desecration of our ancient dead?
We do not know what this individual did, and I am unwilling. I'm unwilling to feel comfortable painting them with the crimes of every person they associate with their entire country. They are an individual.
To that point, they are an individual who warned us what the others were doing.
They asked for a transaction. They warned us in exchange for us committing murder in their name.
Still.
And there is some degree of saying that perhaps they aided us. Part of the reason I felt it important to put them under guard is I don't know if they would be safe walking the halls of Carrick Minor at this moment until something, for an airing of what has gone on, so the people can see that something was decided. I don't know, in fact, if staying here is best for them. But I would hear others' opinions.
I feel like any leniency would have to start with them. You said we can't paint them with their people's brush, but we only know one action. And that was a transactional warning. Without knowing what other war or spiritual crimes they were involved in, what good would any absolution be?
It is certain that they marched through war with their comrades. I do not believe, even with this agreement, those gnomes that came to that battle would have fought us, and I think she would have fought beside them. But that may be a question to ask her. I can't see her turning on her fellows there in our defense. Toland, what are your thoughts?
She did tell us, and she made no promises that she didn't keep. you know, she dealt honestly with us, and we can't punish a person for what they would have done because we don't know.
Hmm. I can agree to that to some extent. I don't think that, however, we can. If you come girded for war, I don't think you have to kill me for me to decide you were my enemy.
Well, that's true, and I don't think she should stay here. Certainly not in the mountain. You know, I've heard talk among the laborers too. I think you're right that she wouldn't be safe wandering the mountain alone. There's a reason the laborers I sent to help the elves are those particular people.
Mm.
Keeps them busy, but I don't think that she's a threat if we were to just let her leave.
Dagriel, I know that you have taken a personal interest in her. What are your thoughts?
She gave us information that we desperately needed to protect ourselves, and she did not wait for payment on that, or even insist on payment on that, or at any point bring that back up. Because I saved her life so that she could walk away from that.
You have spent time with her. Do you feel that she would be any threat to the mountain? Is she... necromancy in and of itself is considered anathema to our people and our culture, but
so is anything above ground for many of us. So that can be kind of you know, a thing about maybe the extent of that. But I don't say that what she does doesn't bother me. I'm saying that I don't think she's a danger. I think that we have destroyed any structure that was around her that would make necromantic gnomes powerful here.
can I ask to address Dawson's point? Sorry. If she assisted in the desecration of our dead,
But she did not.
do we know that?
She told us about him.
That's not the same as not being
It's
a
our
part of
plan.
it.
So if she assisted, let's see here, would that be not preventing it? Not tackling everyone who is attempting it? Is that what you mean?
I mean, if she committed the crime of desecrating our dead, would that alter somewhat your opinion of her blamelessness and what has gone on here?
I don't know. So you want me to ask her if she personally desecrated some of our dead?
I think that would be something that would come up in the trial.
Yeah, I think actually we need to cut here and bring her into the scene because I think we're talking around this in a couple of different ways. So let's assume that the same sort of structure with you there, and she is brought in. She has you know, a packet of papers, and she will sit down.
Thank you for coming. We wish to ascertain some information about your participation in certain things that occurred here in our mountain that we consider crimes. You informed us of the threat beneath our halls, and for that, we are grateful. However, did you take part in the rituals that caused that threat? Did you take part in the rituals of desecration of our dead?
If I may, before I answer that question, state that I am a person who offered assistance and aid to you with empty promises. I informed you what I knew of the operations that were going on in such a way that you could take care of them. I did that as a gesture of generosity in hopes that we could work out something in the future, that you could bring a stop to the military expansion of my people.
You wish
I
for us to
also,
assassinate.
Yes, to tell me that killing the domes was not certainly on your agenda. I also informed and then discovered that you already knew about, but confirmed the timeline on the presence of the dragon, the undead dragon. I did these things, had no recompense, and here I am, a person who has aided and assisted you, and I am on trial. Now, as to the question of whether I was involved in those operations, I was not. I am a bone mason. I am a skeletal technician. I make the skeletons. I move them around. That is my gift and my skill. What was done was not in that order of things. Now, you can believe me or not, I certainly can make that statement to you about what has gone on.
Do any of you have questions? Or should we continue to address you as Blossom, or would you?
That is the name I will use here.
I see. Any further questions for Blossom? Well, if there are not, yes.
If we were to let you go, what would you do?
The conversation that I had with Dagriel, I suspect that first and foremost, I would go back to my house and see whether I could put it to rights, and then I could see what I could scavenge from the items and bodies of my dead comrades. That would involve now less work than before, since time has passed, and merely their souls have moved on and their flesh should be finally desiccated such that I can work with their bones. But that's mostly, I think, as a measure of having labor and perhaps some protection, as I assume that my presence will not be particularly wished here. If I am under threat, then I will leave. But if not, I would prefer to stay in my house.
I have no interest personally in imprisoning you, or nor do I am I a vengeful person who would wish harm upon you? I do not think, however, that this community would be particularly happy to have your presence here.
That much is apparent.
We are but a few of the founders, but we would, when we meet, I think for the services you provided, I think returning to where you came from is not beyond my opinion of a proper response.
Well, lest you think that I am ungrateful, I do recognize that there was no obligation on the part of you and your comrades to come and find me and drag me out of there. It would have been just as easy for you to leave me for dead. And I do appreciate that. And I recognize that that is a debt that I owe to you and your people.
Gagriel has taken great interest in you and has advocated very strongly for you. And I have always taken great value in Dagriel's opinions. There will be a discussion, but I assure you that you will, in one fashion or another, no longer be held prisoner much longer.
That may not be sounding as reassuring as you intended it, or you may have intended it to have that double sense of it. Either way, she will take her papers and fold them up.
Well, if we believe her words, she was not a part of the desecration of our dead. That is relief to me, though doesn't, I suppose, that you have the abilities to find out more. To reassure us of that fact, if you wish. That may not go untoward. People will say things to save themselves. But exile from the mountain, a hermit's life, that seems punishment enough for me. Do others have opinions?
Just to be clear, you're saying that she cannot go back to her home?
I'm saying she cannot be in ours.
Oh, good, okay. So, the mountain.
I don't believe that atonement can be found by people that don't seek it, and I didn't sense any remorse or seeking of redressing what was happened from her. I don't see how letting her go back to her place of power and raise her own horde of skeletons is any sort of reassurance against evils in the future.
Then you propose that she collect her things and leave the region.
If all she wishes is to cut ties with us and be left alone, that's no reassurance for the future. I don't see why she should be allowed to stay in this land and threaten our people to come. If she wished to work something other, if she wished to work to repair the trust and evils done by her and her people, willingly or just by aid, that could be a different conversation. But she didn't strike me as overly remorseful.
I will agree with that, and we have always been very open to different cultural attitudes in our dealings and in the mountain. But whether, as you say, by deed or by compliance, she was part of bringing a true horror to this entire region and a threat to everyone in it.
We left Stonelight after how many years of fighting with fellow dwarves. When those hostilities end, what atonement do we ask of them? Or is that agreement to not fight any longer enough?
Atonement would involve an acknowledgement of wrongs done and an attempt to undo them.
And she goes, but that is not how a peace agreement goes. A peace agreement was that these things cease. If we ask, if we say, you will not commit any hostilities towards us, that should be, if we get that agreement, that should be sufficient.
This is not a peace agreement. She is not a people's, and we are not judging her on the level of a society.
Ah, but you are.
She is
Because
one
you are
person.
accusing her of the crimes of her people, not of her own crimes. You can't name those.
Because she seems uninterested in sharing them.
Didn't ask her to. You just said she didn't atone.
Nolan, any thoughts?
I think we should let her go back to her house. But I think some of us should accompany her and remove anything that seems particularly dangerous. And I think that we should send people to monitor her over the next, several years at least. I don't think we should just send her home and not have any idea what she's doing there. I don't think that she's a threat, but I'm not a necromancer. I'm not sure I would be a very good judge of a necromancer's power. I don't think she's going to be summoning any other undead dragons. But I think if some of us go with her, clear the place out of anything that seems too powerful to leave in her hands. And you never know, it might be good to have an ally who has a different kind of magic from us. As distasteful as we find it.
Blossom herself suggested that it would be the mages from the Mage Tower who might be able to dismantle those traps and wards.
She should be made aware that if she returns there, the centaurs will not have this sort of conversation. They will not weigh these sort of delicacies. They will kill her. They have made promise of that. It may not be safe for her to return home. That is a decision. If we choose to let her go wherever she wishes, that's up to her. But she should probably be aware of it. She might be better served going elsewhere. And I don't come at that with a from a sense of rancor, and I don't come from it from a sense of vengeance. That is purely practical. We have trading. I'm sorry, Lowell, were you saying something?
I think we're going to table this.
Hmm.
This feels like a argument that's gotten to the player level rather than to the PC level. And so we're going to table this and put this off to the side. This is not going to get resolved today, and we're going to leave that out there because I don't want to dwell on this. I do feel like we've gone, this is a tough decision, and there's a lot of complexities to this. So I think given this is our last session, we're going to put this in a box and set that off to the side. I hope that's okay. I think, it's one of those things. If we were in mid-game, I might have us work through this, but I do think this is something we're going to set off to the side. If people want to deal with it in epilogue or whatever, we'll negotiate about that. But let's set that off. Let's take our first break here, though. I want to come back and give Dawson a chance to call the scene. And then I want to talk about the entanglements that I rolled for this year because, they're going to be so terrible and catastrophic, and you're going to have to deal with those then, okay? So take 10. So Dawson, we've got a couple of things on the table. I do think we haven't talked about expeditions, but I do think that I would like, if there's no objection, that we plan that expedition is going down to the waterways to do that as the expedition coming up. I think we need to do that. It's something we built towards and going to the Well of Souls. But you also,
I won't object to that.
Okay, yeah. But you also took this really interesting new ability last time. And I would like to get a sense of what that looks like. But what scene do you want to call here?
So with the ability, the epics apart, turning into stone, becoming more a part of the mountain, I see that as something that's happening bit by bit over the course of this year. I definitely don't think it's in effect now, and right. I think finishing that ritual at the end of the year is going to be a big part of that changeover.
Okay, so probably saving a little bit of that for epilogue, that we see that throughout. Okay.
But I would like to talk to Tolan. I think the setting of the scene would be the two of us in the brewery, doing test runs of different types of ghost mead and figuring out what that's going to look like. But I think what I'd like to talk to Tolan about is that clay effigy circle ritual that I'm working towards. I would like Tolan's advice on who should be the candidates for that. And I know we may not have a half dozen Stone Singer actual NPCs. We don't have to give actual names, but right. I think that's the frame of the conversation.
Where and this is in the sort of brew house, the brewery.
I think so.
Tolan, do you is the whole brewery your lab, or do you have a little lab part of it, or is it?
I think it started out Tolan kind of had. I think it was pretty much treating it as his lab, but now that we actually have a Brewers Guild, I think he's been relegated to one corner of it. Where the mechanical fossa is sort of pacing around, and ghosts keep popping up in the corners because trying to get the ghost made right. Oh wait, no. Well, okay, we summoned one that time, but they only were there for a couple of seconds and didn't seem to understand it when we tried to talk to them. Because I'm using I'm just swiping the graveyard blackberry cider from the book. Nice. And just making it that's just ghost mead.
Okay.
We're gonna have to make a lot more of it if a whole pack of them is gonna show up every time we open a cask.
I was aiming for 1 or 2 for a longer period of time, not 15 for a second. Probably I think the ratios are a little bit off.
Yeah, and you really have to up the impact of the drink. It's spirits of the dead can work up a mighty thirst after a couple of decades in the grave.
You have a point. I'm aiming it for living people, and that's you're right. You're right. That is the
So I take your point that perhaps Emberstone has proven themselves worthy of an invite, or at least skilled enough to carry out the plans, but I feel like we need more. I've been feeling more and more like I'm not enough by myself to serve what the mountain wants or needs.
have you considered bringing any of the remain and
Do they even have talents that run along that line?
they have I'm not sure how similar their talents are, but they have some overlapping skills. And this mountain was always very connected to the moon. They're of the moon, we're of the mountain.
It's, the bodies themselves are, well, the moon milk is a major component of the clay mixture. You seem to understand outside magic users easier than I do.
I've been told that not always in a complimentary way.
Oh, did you take it complimentary? I mean, kidding, of course. If you found a particular one that had the right abilities and an interest, I suppose we could consider it.
I think that, well, you know me, I think an eclectic mix of magical abilities is a positive thing.
I have become very aware of that, he says, taking a long drink of very alcoholic ghost mead.
With yes, ghost mead and possessed mechanical animal, and there's probably various other experiments in in the brewery that are not particularly dwarvish examples of magic.
You would need to make it clear to them that this is not a path to power, and this is not a passing thing. This would be a deep responsibility and a commitment to the spirit of our mountain.
Yeah, of course. I'm not volunteering any of them without.
Well, and I'm
we
not
would have to explain the
anything,
situation to them.
Yes, and then we would have to judge the particular candidate.
Oh, of course. But I think that look, it's like farming. If you have one crop, even if it's a very good crop, very reliable, produces a lot of fruit. If the weather conditions change, or if something happens that damages it, it's all wiped out. If you have a lot of different types of crops, even if they are seemingly incompatible, even if they thrive in different conditions. You get a bad year, one of them produces, one of them doesn't. You always have something.
Still not entirely convinced on all your experimental farming. There's far too much sun and weather involved for my taste.
Exactly. But some crops do well in sun and weather, and some forms of magic do well in different circumstances. I think, even though you're talking about a connection with the mountain specifically, the mountain has a surface. The mountain points to the sky. It has water flowing under it. There's more than rock.
Why do you always insist on making things so complicated?
I've been told that's just my nature.
He picks up another tankard and downs it and just immediately slams it back down. Nope, that is not it. Nope. Oh, I can taste it in my feet.
That feels like a good place to cut. So we have 2 entanglements. Let's start with the first one. Let's start with the mountain entanglement. Dagriel. As the people are down there in level 3 and 4 doing work and getting things together and kind of watching those robots, the remnants that are there at with the salvage site. It is, of course, Fishbanina that finds another smaller crevasse, little crevicey thing, and pushes her way through and comes back and gets some of Toland's people, and they clear a little pathway here. What is the remarkable natural discovery that has been made? Like, what is the feature down here that has been discovered? You are muted.
So I think that there's an extensive wall, flat, unmarked, unblemished, shiny as a mirror, that goes up and down in this one cavern for like the equivalent of 7 or 8 stories.
Wide, mirrored, flat.
Like some sort of heat thing severed, the mountain right there, and then the other part of it fell away at some point, but it's broken into rubble, and it's just this glassy wall.
And what is the strange feeling when you're there by that wall, Toland?
It's physically painful to stand too close to. Like, you can feel your skin, you can feel like heat. It's like Dawson probably appreciates that it's like standing in very hot sun.
Yeah, kind of getting close to it has that weird radiance, the radioactivity to it almost that is there. Grunheld, what's the other interesting thing in this sort of cavern space that has this feature in it? You are muted.
I think there is a pool that is strangely effervescent. How does that sound? Does that seem good?
Yeah, there had seen some water elsewhere, but the water in here, it seems to be filled, and it is bubbling. It doesn't look like there's any source that you can see from it, but it is this naturally weird effervescence. Like it doesn't seem to evaporate. It seems to maintain a constant level. And what is it? What's the scent that's coming off of it?
Strangely chemically, we're used to sulfur, but this is a much more acrid, much more up in your nose, high end smell.
Okay. And I think like if you do consult with your people who particularly work with acids for etching and things like that, that let me get their names again. The leader will tell you, to check it and say, this is a very nasty acid. You're going to want to put rails around this. And what is the sign? Is it something you see here? Is it a vision? Is it a communication from the mountain? Is it a dream that tells you that you're seeing a piece, a cross section of a divine engine that fell from heaven and stabbed itself through the earth?
So this wall is reflecting these mists and vapors that are floating around the cavern, but it doesn't actually reflect anybody that comes in, like any of us that come in, anything that's happening there. Instead, if you sit and watch it for long enough, almost like cloud watching, the mists start to swirl into more and more recognizable shapes and begin playing out fragments and bits of ancient and lost mythologies and lores.
I like that. Can I modify that to kind of fit to, we've already described it as mirroring people's images. So maybe it's after you sit there for a time, your images go away and you start to see these visions of things. Is that cool?
Nice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So there is a bit of you sitting yourself and you almost see yourself disintegrate in a mirror before these other visions start to come in of cloud watching. It seems like
Would you say
weird
disintegrate the same way you might in that acid?
maybe.
Yeah, those fumes are worrying one way or another.
Yes. Grunheld. This is the second entanglement. That was our natural discovery. Where is this trade caravan delegation group? Where has it come from? Has it come from a foreign land? Has it come from your old settlement? Has it come from somewhere from the elves to the south? Has it come from the Valley of Mists? Like, where has it come from?
Ooh, how about that area to the east where we had the Minotaurs go?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a caravan that comes from there to the east, from the far lands that the mages came from where the Minotaurs headed to, and so on. Tolan, what kind of people are dominant in this caravan? Is it humans? Is it vermain? Is it dwarves? Is it gnomes? Like what is the group here that we see?
I think they're a kind of people that we have never seen before. Um, at least some among them. They have wings, but they're not like they don't have the bird-like body of a tank.
Are they
They look
feathered wings? Are they insect wings? Are they lizard wings? Or dragon wings? I guess lizards don't have wings, so dragon wings.
let's say feathered. They're
Okay.
they're bird-like wings, but they don't have the bird bill or the bird talons. They look like humans. And I think when you actually like look at them, these wings are constructed. They're not growing from their bodies.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things as you these group arrives and they've clearly talked with the mages. The mages don't particularly seem to like them, but they've come on and they've arrived here, and you will see that besides these wings, the wings seem to be the dominant sort of common feature amongst them. There are some other people here amongst them, but a number of them have like red metal arms with a kind of a steampunk look to it, or replaced hands, or they have an eye missing, but there's kind of a carven sphere that's spinning around in their eye socket, and they seem to be kind of a steampunk transhumanist fantasy race that are here, and like the first thing they will come and they say, do you have anyone with a debility? A missing hand, a missing foot, a missing leg, these sorts of things. That is our specialty.
We're minors. I'm sure there are people with
Yeah.
missing hands and feet.
Who is the most like notable or prominent person, Dagriel, amongst your people who could benefit from this? You are muted.
There are multiple minors, but I think actually the person that gets pushed forward right away is one of the healers who actually had gotten very sick and lost their, I mean, they can't see any longer. They're blind. And they were a very good healer. And they're like, they can see with these, we ask about that.
Say,
And
it is fairly monochromatic. There are shades and colors and grays, but they will see crisp and clear as day. It will provide them a vision even in darkness.
all right. And we will push forward Sayak, who is like maybe 6 years older, and just like had gotten sick had gotten sick on the journey here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, and was just one of the first people, and then it just took a long time, and then he lost his sight. So
let's assume that the stead spends a treasure plus trade goes on, and they will go and for several people make simple prosthetics that work decently, that work well as fantasy prosthetics will, and it will take them a while, but they will spend a good week and a half here working on getting those eyes for him. Dazin, what do they make those eyes out of?
I think it's glass. I think it's lightning glass.
And what does that look like? Do they make them look like eyes, or do they make them look like something else?
I think they have like a smoky burned cast to them, and there's like a sort of branching occlusion that goes through the middle of them, sort of like a lightning scar.
And they will say, though this will not necessarily be a benefit to your friend, and this is the leader of the Bale Scent. One of the things about these eyes with this material is they will be able to spot lightning a handful of seconds before it strikes. It is tied to that. These will last. These are a thing that will last. These other items will require some maintenance. We will be, we will send someone through in a few years to check up on you to make sure everything is up. If that seems reasonable to all of you.
Mhm. And we will show them all of the unusual metals and strange minerals and those sorts of things as like you are things that you can consider for the trade then.
I think that at sort of towards the end of that, a couple of the leader of the Bale Scent will sit down with you, Grunheld, and will say, long term, perhaps we could negotiate something where some of our craftsmen come and live here, sharing materials, trade, that kind of thing, such that it would be easier for our caravans as we make our way west and east and back and forth as a stopover point.
We have always been very welcoming to trade outposts here at the mountain, and the things that you are trading are nigh on miraculous. We certainly would be willing, I believe, to accept an outpost here.
Excellent. And they will be very pleased with that outcome. Let's actually have you make a host roll here.
Okay. Sorry, I forgot. Okay. 3 dice. Rolling. I got a 4.
Got a 4. So I think they'll say, we have a couple of our number who are in the family way. And I've spoken to them, and they've asked to next year settle off rather than being with the trade caravan. So we'll come back next summer, and we'll make those arrangements.
Excellent. We will try and provide some sort of accommodation for them.
That would be most appreciated. All right. So founders, let's bring the founders together. Because there are 2 things that need to be discussed. One is the expedition, but the other thing is a wish from Grunheld is, where do we go from here? What's the structure to come? And you said you wanted to have a little discussion in play, and then maybe we epilogue some of it. But I wanted to let you have that moment to kind of frame out what you wanted to do with that discussion.
I think, as Dagria and I had kind of mentioned before, maybe in front of all council, we set down if to have new founders, it is a vote of the founders. I think we agreed on that. That we set in stone, since we are dwarves, that we have the Thane as an elected position out of the founders in general that every year, at the beginning of the year, if someone wishes to stand for Thane, then whoever, those that are standing for Thane can be voted on by the mass. If that all seems to float across the founders, I will also kind of propose that it seems to me that Dawson, you have taken on a certain other aspect beyond just part of the scouts. I would like to propose that Dawson
Yeah. Oh, they froze.
Mhm. Very dramatic, though.
Yeah. No. I was like, oh, he's thinking very carefully about what he's going to say.
Right.
here.
Yeah. I thought it was meant to be a dramatic pause, but no.
If history repeats itself, they will drop here in a moment. Can you guys hear us? Wow, we'll give him a minute here. There is history. Very nice thing with those wings, Ethan. I love that. That was great.
That's cool.
Thanks. I was like, this is kind of boring until I was like, oh, but no, they're they built these wings. Like that made it more interesting for me, I thought.
Oh yeah. And it's yet another rabbit hole for Tolan to go down.
Yeah. Tolan is definitely following these people around. Okay, how did they do that? I bet I could build some wings.
So I'm going to pause the recording. Should be back in about 2 minutes but we might as well pause this now.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes. Can you
Yes.
see us?
No, but
so Grunheld, you were in the midst of saying something about what you thought Dawson should do.
Yes, Dawson, you seem to have taken on a position as stone speaker and in a way spiritual leader for us of the founders. I would propose that you act as that position and as such be founder on that basis. And perhaps the scouts as a guild would have a founder of their own.
huh.
That is, of course, up for debate. And as you have been head of your guild, I don't wish to push any sort of decisions on you. But I, too, feel that I am no longer truly leading the Hearthguard. They have grown tremendously. And I feel that they deserve a speaker for themselves. I would humbly suggest that I have served as a founder and perhaps could continue to do so if that would be this council's agreement. But if it is not, I can understand that as well.
What role would you take then?
I would suggest a founder, perhaps emeritus, based upon my age and experience, or perhaps, as I have spent a great deal of time amongst the settlements, perhaps as a tribune to the families.
make a separate suggestion?
Of course.
That upon becoming a Thane, you are no longer the leader of your guild henceforth. And that guild would have another thing that would be part of the Thane, is that you would not have your guild to call upon for backing you, your choices and your decisions. You could be more, could be more, let's see, what is the word? Neutral towards all of the issues, because you are freed from those duties.
That would, I suppose, stand reasonably.
But then we need to recognize or decide, like, when elections are set and things like that.
I would suppose the beginning of the years.
So yearly.
Makes sense.
Seems reasonable.
But yearly, if someone asks to like
Stand
as a thing, right?
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, and I mentioned there's some legalist things that go on about figuring that out. So we get Grunheld. Are we good with Grunheld being founder emeritus going forward?
Sure.
Grunheld, I think it should clearly be established that the founder who leaves a guild gets to suggest who follows up for them. So who would you have as the leader of that guild, of your guild of the Hearthguard?
I would suggest to the guild as I leave that it is Captain Dellen. I think that she has proven herself brave and wise.
And Dawson, are you on board with this idea of becoming sort of the spiritualist, rune mage, stone speaker guild and handing the scouts over to someone else?
I certainly think that Ralayla's been leading the scouts more than I ever have for years now. I could take responsibility for speaking for the mountain.
So Ralayla will take over as the guild master founder for the Scout Guild. Will you take on that new guild? Is there anything else about that we need to resolve?
Anyone have any other motions or in the fashion of how things should be administered?
Dagro?
My suggestion is that no guild leader or Thane may be replaced by someone of their own family line. Do not want this to turn into a set of family squabbles.
I tend to agree against hereditary inheritance.
Hearing no objections, we will consider the motion passed. Are there any motions for the table? Hearing none, we will close such business for the table. Model UN.
There you go.
Actually, Model Arab League, not Model UN. But anyway, same difference. Just a little more weird. So let's then do this. Let's take a quick 5. We're going to come back and we're going to go right into doing that expedition. We're going to do that so that we have enough time to have a good chance to do some epilogue. Sound okay? Okay. So take 5 and we'll be right back. We'll get Sherry in here.
I was
Hello.
always here.
You were always here. It was me all along. So we see the group gathered together, and we see that descent of a larger party down into here. Yes.
Just since we're fixing to go on an expedition, I'd like to suggest, since we went up a level in our tier, we got a new ability. There is a cool ability that lets us take an extra supply to every one of our expeditions. How about that one?
I was going to suggest that one as well. I
Okay.
had just sort of figured we wouldn't pick up an ability, but looking at them, I like that one.
Okay, so you have an extra supply. If you guys can fill that in on the sheet. So this begins, as with all of these things, with an expedition roll, a journey roll, someone leading it who gets to mark an XP. So if there's anybody who's on the borderline of XP, this would be a good time to lead a journey.
I'm not on the
cusp.
borderline.
Okay.
On the cusp.
Are you on the cusp, Tyler? Okay. Then Tyler, let's have you lead this expedition.
All righty. I'm going to use Journey so I can get that XP in that one, which is the one that will go up.
Okay.
All righty.
So you're leading the expedition. You've got one die from Journey. Are you bringing something from your supply in to assist with this?
And just to frame up, this is us doing the journey in the boat and all. Is that what we're doing?
That was going to be part of it. Yes. Yeah.
So it's us going down into the mountain, all that. Sort
yes.
Of stuff. Okay. Then yeah, I will. I'll bring a historical memento from the past. I think that it is a key that when I was first looking into coming back here to the metropolis, that I had managed to dig up and find. Don't know what it opens, but it was from this place back in the day.
Perfect. You're leading it. Let's have you roll 2 dice.
I think I only get one. It's a journey.
Yeah, but didn't you just use a supply?
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. Yes. Okay. Rolling 2 dice. Yay. Oh, I got to refresh because I had lost my internet connection.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay. Rolling 2 dice.
2 3s.
Ugh, that's a 6.
Luckily, you don't mark stress for your fails.
Ooh.
Dawson. What?
Cat.
So you get a journey of 2. Are you going to mark supply?
Yep. No, I don't think I have something great for this.
All right, 2 dice. 4 and a 6.
I got a 6.
Okay. Talon. 3 and a 4, so that's still a victory. And Daggeril.
4 and a 3.
4 and a 3. So you will make your way down again into this, and into this place at the bottom where there is this rift in the floor. Part of the reason that the journey is taxing is that you are carrying a giant fucking stone boat down with you.
No, it's just metal.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Much lighter. Dwarven aluminum.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So you've brought this, but it is lumbering and heavy and hard and trying, but you will get it down here. And you will spend a treasure. So mark a treasure off from the settlement, and that figure will rise up and will say,
Oh, hello.
did you want to start?
Yes, this is the beginning of our
Yeah,
conversation
we are
now. So
starting
here
here,
going
yes.
forward, we're going to start a negotiation.
Absolutely, yes.
Because these are my people that I'm bringing with us.
Yeah,
in this
my people
boat.
are down below. But yeah, I see the boat. Yeah,
it's much larger now, but not too large.
Yeah, larger compared to before. Yes.
Well, yes. Before
that
was
it
just
was
a
smaller
model.
thing.
You
That was
build
just a
model
Yeah,
to test the theory, and then you build the larger.
Worked on that for a while. Yes.
This is the larger one. And it's
of course,
completed.
it is significantly larger than it was before.
Inside, and it's very sturdy and
but
waterproof, and
it is luxurious
window
in
the
comparison
front.
to the size of it, like little mice before.
What? Again, that wasn't a boat from.
No.
That's not important.
That's really, we're going off topic.
So we're here to negotiate for passage to
you're
the Well
negotiating
of
for passage.
Souls.
Well of Souls. So you have a destination in mind.
Yes, the Well of Souls.
What is it you exactly give him? Like you give him treasure, but what actually is the thing you're handing him, Dawson?
So I was looking at it, and we haven't done much in the way of esoteric building use. So I was wondering if I could damage the brilliant facets of Dagriel Jewel Crafter to bring an aquamarine the size of one of our heads.
I like that. That sounds good. It's like, okay, awesome. I look forward to seeing what you give me on the way back. And he drops it in the water.
Way back.
And then he says, get in.
Oh, you guys don't know him very well, but
I don't
when
know. You don't know me very well at all.
Words, you really need to just
you need to actually need to do it now. I already said it once, but you're just still standing around.
He might just take our boat.
I could just take your boat.
Oh, please don't take our boat.
No, I'm not going to take your boat.
See, we're getting in. I'm getting in. Come on,
okay, come on. Everybody in the pool. And then, of course, some of the guild people that you have brought with you will lift this up and will drop it in the water with some trepidation. There's a lot of them saying, okay, so how did we decide what the line of succession was? And the boat sinks. And inside, you can't see anything. And at first, there's maybe a little bit like cold feeling, like pressure, like it, and maybe even like a little bit of water comes in. But then that stops. And
I brought my pot of wax that can be used to seal many things for that exact like patching up any holes.
And then you have never moved this fast in your life. Like, you will feel that absolute motion of things as it runs along, and it like hits against things, and it's not like you're going on a straight line course. It's like there are twists and turns and being thrown about, and just absolute, the unfortunate thing is, of course, we're doing this right when there's another potentially homemade submarine incident in the news. So not little real world timing there. Bouncing around and on
this. We'll probably be fine.
Dawson, would you please roll me 3d6?
Okay. 6, a 4, and a 1.
Good. It stops. And there's a knock at the hatch.
I'll knock back.
Knocks again.
Okay, I think that's him. I'll undo the hatch.
He says, I'll be in the water. Bloop. And when you come out, you will see that you are in beached on an island in the midst of a underwater hall, like a cavern. The island is the only dry space that you see, because everything else is just this raging river that runs as far as you can see in the distance vanishing point and backwards. And what is lighting this place, Dagriel? Is it something natural to the stone? Is it something that the person who brought you set up? What is it?
No, it is a giant golden, I mean, angel figure. I mean, we know it's an angel, even though we've never seen an angel. It's horrible and divine, and it's dead, and it's hanging there.
Yeah, kind of half
It's
stuck in the rock, hanging from the ceiling, and it's like those old biblical angels, like the 8 wings and the eyes and the hands and those kind of things. And there's just this glow of this thing, and you can tell this is just the last phosphine of this thing's passing. But the island, you will see that there is up it kind of in the glow, you can see that there's a dripping that comes down from above, like water is dripping. There's no place else where water is kind of dripping down, but you'll see it's dripping. And there is a maybe 20-foot across set of stone there. The stone itself is the deepest kind of purple. Like it takes you a second to realize that it's not black, that it is purple. That is up about 2 feet high. It's about 1 foot wide, and it's this circle. And then there is this space. The water is dripping down to this space, and there is this shaft that goes downwards.
That has to be it. It actually worked. They brought us to the right place.
okay.
Of course,
What
the
do
is
we
the right
do?
place. You hear from the water.
What is it?
Are we
Does
supposed to climb down into it?
I don't. Let's start with seeing what this water is like.
So you'll walk
As long as
over.
we're out of the boat, I'm happy.
Yeah, and imagine the sound of the raging river around you. That kind of fills
Oh yeah, this conversation
hall.
has to be shouted, you know,
Yeah,
repeatedly.
and I will pull that boat up far onto the beach as I can. I will
Okay.
keep on working on it until it is absolutely away from that river.
You can feel the person in the water helping, kind of pushing from below to get it up there to reassure you there. Yeah, you walk over. It is a well. You don't see water from here because the light doesn't really catch down into there. What do you do?
I suppose pull out a magnesium flare lantern and see if we can shine any light down it.
You will lower this lantern down, and it goes down, down, and then it's gone. And then you'll hear a roaring sound. And you'll kind of step back and you will see something kind of rise up out of this well. And you will see this figure. And it has two of your lanterns, but one of them is made of silver and the other one is made of gold. And he says, "Which of these is yours?"
Which one looks like mine?
They both look like yours, Dawson, except now they're completely made of gold and silver.
Doesn't the gold one melt?
Hmm?
Your lantern, it was putting out a lot of heat. I think it would weaken a gold one.
Oh. Yes. And we're working with moonlight here. Silver.
We'll hand you this silver lantern. You can see that it is a humanoid figure, spectral, but recognizably humanoid. And it hands you that.
Thank you.
Why have you come?
I have been seeking to forge a deeper connection with the spirit of our mountain for our people, and heard rumors that the water from the Well of Souls could aid in such spiritual connection and transfer.
It could. Do you know what the water is?
Legends say that it is the collected spiritual essence of the dead of the world, taken
No.
below the... Oh.
No. This well is the well of the dwarven souls. You commune with the ancestors. You speak with them. Isn't that right, Dazan Runja? And all of you commune with the spirits of your ancestors. But know that only a few of those ancestors remain in the world for you to contact. They are buoyed, strengthened, given shape by the souls of other dwarves who have committed themselves to them. And the rest of what those dwarves are go down below into the earth. The water that leaks from that fills this well, and it is the essence of dwarves who have left this world and dwarves to come.
This is it like a natural or smooth seeming hole in the ground? Does it seem worked
Oh no,
in
this is
any way?
definitely something that is divine in its creation.
Who or what made this place for our spirits to gather?
The place where the dwarven spirits gather in the underearth this was made by the first of the dwarven gods to fall. to provide a passageway, an easy falling for the other dwarven gods who were slain. I will bring each of you a cup from this water if you wish it.
What should we do to not pay for, but trade for this boon?
Not everything is a trade. You will decide what you wish to do with this water. You can use it in a ritual as you wish, Gazan. You can drink it to learn the secrets of one of your ancestors. You can consume it such that the child that you have will truly be a dwarf many-souled. I will give this to you if you wish.
It is what I've wished for a long time.
I will give this to you, Dawson. It will help you in your ritual, but you already know that you are growing closer to the mountain on your own.
I have felt its call stronger than ever before on this trip.
When you are ready, return here and leap in, and we will make a mountain of you in the world.
That is where my mountain calls me. Then I would gladly go.
What will you give me to put the water in, Dawson? Do you have like a flask or a glass or a stopper or a bottle? What do you give them?
I'm gonna pull out. I have an effigy of an honored ancestor. I think it's an urn, actually, an urn for the dead.
It will take that and it will reach down. It will come back up with this water. The urn is cold as ice when he hands it to you. Tolan of Rust Axe. Do you wish this water?
Yes, yes.
You can make a mighty fine brew with this.
It would be an extremely powerful brew
He says,
for when we need it.
a little goes a long way. What do you give him to put the water in?
I think it is a I think it's a glass bottle.
Okay. He will take it down, and when he hands it back to you, it it's a frosted bottle, like it has the water in it, but that frost is condensed on the outside.
I take it and I like, wrap a scarf or something around it and like very carefully place it in the bag.
Runeheld Maradim, what is it that you want from this water? Do you wish when you pass to become an ancestor, to be heard by the others? This can help you on that journey. Or do you wish this for your daughter? Or something else? This is a precious thing. Only your friends will have this.
Always hoped that I would take my place amongst the ancestors. That I might be of some small guide to my people.
What do you have for me to put this in?
I reach into my pack and I pull out a small chest and open it up and pull out my teapot.
I will put this in here. When you know that it is your time, leave instructions for them to pour this into your mouth.
Thank you.
Dagriel onyx blood, wanderlust, traveler. What is it that you want? Do you want a vision to the course, to the place that you wish to go, that you've been thinking of?
No. I want a message. A message for those that are at the destination I'm going to. A thing that you need them to know. That our ancestors need them to know.
What is it that you wish for me to put this in?
She will take out a canteen. It's one of them that was made by the Scholar Scouts. They gave it to her as a gift. It is not the greatest work ever in all of dwarf time because they were all very young, but all the hands touched it.
And he will fill it up, and it is so cold. It is so cold. If you put your tongue on it, it would get stuck on there.
I know I'm going to have to keep it away from the Scholar Scouts, aren't
yes. Because you're certain that this is never going to warm, that it will remain this cold. There are new ages upon us. The world is twisting in places where it has not twisted before. There are new gods, and there are new ways to live. Are you ready to depart?
Is there anything else that our ancestors would have us know?
I don't know. I am not an ancestor.
What is your name?
My name was destroyed when they killed me, and I fell, and I made this well. I am a ghost of the gods that once were.
How can we honor you in our home?
You do not need to honor me. You need to honor yourselves. That is this world.
Listen, have you found all that you have come for?
A good bit more. I think we all have a lot of work to do.
And I'll assume you hand the treasure off to your friend to bring you back. And he will say, if there are other places you wish to go on the continent. On the
just
continent.
this continent?
Yeah, just this continent, yes.
Oh, so you can't take us further than that? You're not,
No,
not
I can't take you
capable of
further.
that
You'd have
sort of
to
thing?
talk to no, can't cross the oceans.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
well, we'll see.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll happen.
Maybe another trip would
Could
be
be.
worth it
Yeah,
at
it
some
might be
point.
worth it. Yeah, it'd be fun.
Fun is stretching it a good bit.
Yeah. And he will climb in, and it is that same journey, but like it feels completely different. It's a different direction. There are different turns and bends. And then there's it comes to a sudden stop, and then you'll feel it get thrown up into the air and come crashing down. And when you open the hatch, your guild members are seated there, and you can see that they're kind of like shocked, and they say, "You've been gone for weeks."
Weeks?
Is everything all right?
Yes, we've sent people back and forth to get food and kind of keep watch here.
Appreciate you waiting for weeks.
Well, we did go on shifts, to be perfectly honest.
Even so.
Yeah, and I suspect this is Emberstone. Went on shifts.
I've made a boat that travels through time.
Was it the boat or the route?
Emberstone says, "See difference." He's a genius at moving you forward in time.
Very convenient method of travel, but I think I'm going to work on inventing wings. Convenient, but terrifying.
Never again. Never again.
You will go back up, and like this is the thing is you've been gone for a while, and when the four of you come back in, I think that you see everyone come out to thank and celebrate your return. It is perhaps a bigger celebration than what happened with the dragon, because there was a bit there that they feared that you were gone. And I do think that as you are there, Grunheld, you will see a figure come pushing through the crowd, and you will see your daughter, and she will come running up to you, tears in her eyes, and
embrace her. You decided to come,
and you were not here, and they feared you lost.
No, but I do have stories to tell you.
And Fishbanina, you will realize by this point, is locked around your leg, Onyx Blood. Like Dagriel, she's just like, and she's trying to be a brave girl, but she, even though she's a young teen, she's trying not to look like she cares, but she kind of like is right on your coattails there. And I think that we need to move to our epilogues. I'd like to do a couple of potentially a couple like an immediate epilogue, like in the immediate short term, and then maybe look at the long term things that you want to have happen. And again, you get the right to kind of set some things. If you do go into somebody else's territory, we might negotiate about that. But uh, let's start as we have this round with you, Dagriel. What is your near term, short term, what we see in this year or this year and the following year, or even a couple of years, like our short term for Dagriel?
I think, like, when she comes back, the Scholars Guild had sort of sorted itself out, and she steps away at that point. She
In your
literally,
absence, they've kind
yeah,
of like had to come to terms with you being gone.
exactly. Um, and I think that they came up with their own way that they were going to figure out the leader each time. It involved a complicated roulette of random methods, that would be selected from, and then whatever one that would be the person. And this time, essentially, it is my cousin who is taking my place as the guild leader. And I, um, I am sort of like excellent, and I'll give her some pointers for managing the other guild leaders in the Founders Council. She never goes to another Founders Council again, ever. Not that she talks to you guys, but she never goes to the councils, if that makes any sense. Completely leaves that so that she's not pushing on those things. Instead,
Yeah.
mostly the Scholar Scouts and getting ready for the trip.
Okay. And are you preparing to take like asking anyone else to go with you? Are you making that conversation?
Yeah.
Who is it you think is going to go with you?
I would have asked Neverburn. I would have asked among the Vermain, any who wish to go see the things that there are to see.
There will definitely be one of the Vermain,
Yes,
uh, uh, Dekijus, Ishru, and Oroshi. That Vermain will go with you.
that sounds excellent. And the name is exactly the sort of name that I want for my traveling companion. And I do ask Tolan. I don't expect Tolan to go, but I do kind of.
Tell Tolan where you're asking Tolan to go.
So, do you remember when that Tengu talked about those gods? The ones that had killed some of the bad things? Had taken care of those, but one that they hadn't yet is what corrupted the trolls? There's some island where there's an assassin's library. So, what I've got is we could actually go and talk to these gods, figure out what's up, and make sure that, what did he say? That dwarven god that destroyed the Lida's setup isn't allowed to plow over every place, maybe. I have no problem with dwarven gods, but there seems to be some rules that need to be put in place.
This
We could stop by and see if Ware wants to go.
I do want to go.
Okay.
Well, that information you found,
Mhm.
I mentioned to I forgot his name already. Aiken that I had it, but I haven't actually given it to her yet.
Better get there
Yeah,
before the
I
wedding,
think
right?
So let's
Right.
let's
Yeah.
put a pin in your answer there for a second, Tolan.
Okay.
But I think Neverburn will go with you.
Mhm.
Uh, uh,
See if there's anyone else who would be particularly keen on it.
one
So,
of the Vermain, and there was somebody else I was thinking would. Oh, Cesano will. He has to go back He says, "I will go with you. I'll show you the route to the place where we might catch the boat."
That would be wonderful. And I asked Fishbanina's father if it would be okay if Fishbanina went with us. It is a long undertaking and a dangerous one, but she has been through so many things.
He will say, "If I were to deny her this, I would never be spoken to again." So I think you know the answer already.
I did not want to press, and yet I can't say no to her. So there you go.
I have decided to, based on your generous offer, set up to manage your tavern.
Excellent.
I have handed my other tavern off to a centaur with more money than sense, and he will discover that it is much tougher than he thinks it is.
Good. Then you could come back in, rescue him, and have it, a whole series of
Oh,
taverns.
yeah, I could do a bar rescue.
Yeah, exactly.
Tolan, let's come to you. Short term, this immediate year or next year, what do we think you see of that?
Yeah, I think I do plan on going with Dagriel. But yes, first I do take that information to Wira.
And she will look at it, and she said, "Is this true? Is this real?"
Found in a locked chest in a cavern that has not been visited since the old city. It's very real.
With this, I will be able to sever my agreement with Lubeck.
I'm only sorry that we didn't find it sooner.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate what you have done for me.
You've done a great deal for me as well. So I hope that this this allows you to do well whatever you wish to do. One option of which is and then I describe what Dagriel and I are about to do. We would appreciate it if you would come along. Of course, we would not hold it against you at all. I would appreciate it if you would come along.
And I think it's that when you say the "I," that I think that does change her response, and she will go, "I will settle affairs with Lubeck, and I will go with you." You're muted, Sherry.
And Fishbanina and Dagriel, who were leaning against the doorway on the thing outside, listening in, like breathed a sigh of relief.
Grunheld, what do you want for your short term?
I think we see Grunheld and her daughter's husband. Her daughter is Doranheld, by
Right.
the way. But and the kids going through the mountain, and Grunheld's so proud to show everything off. And there's a bit of the enjoyment of being around each other, and then sort of the getting tired of each other as the daughter is like, "Well, it's time to go home." And I think that we see kind of a a state visit where Grunheld goes back with them to visit the old home. We'll present a bit of Mithril to the king there to prove how well we've done at Garrick Minor before returning back. And I think we see Grunheld, still in the grind. As we, even in that short term, we see her thumb in every little pie.
Who is the next Thane? Which NPC takes that role?
Well, we were going to get to that in the long term.
Well, I was thinking for the immediate, like who after you.
Grunheld holds on with iron claws unless they vote her out, and she kind of worked to stack the council.
Okay.
So you see her.
Well, okay, so we will come back to that. Dawson.
So I'll say I had anticipated slightly more rolls this time, and I was very much pushing towards like getting another weariness. So since I have another like roll to do on finishing the ritual, I'm just gonna push towards that. As I'm gonna mark unsteady, as it takes Dawson several more months to find the perfect mixture of like mountain clay and moon milk and soul water to make these perfect effigies, and more he's hearing the voice of the mountain in his head, and not usually in like clear language like he's hearing voices, but it's in things he has to interpret. And I do think that following Tolan's advice and more follow the son of a.
Wait just a second. You're all good.
You following in Tolan's advice and more follow up stuff with that. He does. Oh my god! Hold on just a second. Let me close everything else.
Sure.
Okay. There's gonna be a Vermain. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
And Emberstone and 3 other dwarven figures that he carves, and then in one of these like fugue states of the mountain speaking through him, carves a Tengu form as well. Which he doesn't, we fill out all the slots, but he doesn't quite realize who that one's for until the day of the ritual, when a member of Ringshu's family, one of his children if he has children, or another member of his family if he doesn't, is just like there and waiting and ready.
Nice.
And as they're all standing in the ritual circle, as he steps forward, he says, "You 6 have come forward, wishing to deepen your connection to the mountain. You wish to lay down your bodies of flesh and rise up in new and perfect mineral forms. You've been tested and judged worthy of this endeavor, but let me tell you now that worthiness will not help you bear this burden. And let's be clear about this. This path ahead of you is not an honor. It is not your right, and it is not a gift. It is a burden. You are agreeing to bear the weight of this mountain, to carry Cloud Island on your backs, and this mountain is so much more than simply an unfathomable weight of stone. Because when you wear these clay vestments, you carry the blood and spirit of our home on your spines. You carry the souls of our peoples on your shoulders, and in your arms protect their dreams of a future unending. Your shadow will be cool refreshment for the homesick, and your song will be guidance for the lost. This world is an empty place, and now you must endeavor to be vast enough to fill it. You look at these bodies, and you think them untiring, but they will exhaust you. You believe these forms are unchanging, but they will mold you. And though others may find your new shapes cold, you will feel yourself seared to the core. But you can handle all of this, and so much more, as long as you remember who it is you now serve. You do not serve yourself, for you are so much smaller than the mountain. You do not serve the Thane or any other leader, for they could never match the wisdom of this mountain. You do not serve your peoples, for they will not endure as long as this mountain. You serve Cloud Island, because only Cloud Island is big enough, and wise enough, and eternal enough to bear all of us to our destinies. So step forward and agree to be crushed under this unbearable weight, and our mountain home will teach you to bear more than you ever thought possible.
Tell me, Dawson, which of the 3 traits of the mountain do you change?
Rather than opening a browser again and risking things, why don't you read those 3 traits off
Proud, playful, ornery.
I think ornery. I
Okay.
think it doesn't resent us anymore. It may have another bad side to its personality, but it's not that.
Let us give it hasty.
Ooh. Interesting. The flowing of the water.
And we're going to Catan it. Dawson, what is your long-term epilogue?
I think Dawson spends several years with this group, and works with them, learning more about his role and trying to help them learn more about their new roles. Until there's one among them, and despite all of his efforts, it's probably Emberstone, who has enough knowledge and connection and expertise to start forming his own ritual to expand the circle. And that year, when Dawson does his annual tradition of transferring into the body to, start going out, carrying the mountain with him, when he transfers into his clay body, it just crumbles and shatters to dust. And he's snapped back into himself. And I think that's when he feels that call. He goes out in the middle of the night, and he starts singing to the boat to carry it after him as he makes his way down to the bottom of the mountain.
Nice. Grunheld, what is your long-term epilogue?
I think we see Grunheld growing older. We see that the grandkids, some of them have come to live here. Her daughter never lives here full time. And we see Grunheld still sitting in that founder's seat, still, even occasionally with someone standing against her, holding on to Thane for a decade or so longer. We see a cut to her with the matriarch, as the matriarch is on her sickbed, as the two of them are laughing and talking, and Grunheld knows it's the last time she's going to see her. We see Grunheld finally get voted out. And there is the attempt at graciousness, but still on her face is that bitterness that comes from it. But she'll sit in the founders, in there as just a founder, giving her bit of advice as she goes.
Can I throw a little something in there?
Certainly.
I think that day when you get voted out, Dawson has been gone for almost a generation at this point. And that's the day when he shows back up, made of stone, and carrying a cask of ale to help console you.
Nice.
And I think we see her entering into full dotage. She doesn't go to the council as much anymore. She's got the great grandkids, though, that are always around her cluttered house, which is ever more cluttered. Outside the door is this mass of people of all different species that are making up Carrick Minor. And she kind of moved, one evening, moves over and pushes aside the cabinet to go back into the expanded and enormously filled hoard. But rather than closing the door behind her this time, she reaches up on a shelf and pulls down a teapot. And leaving the door open, she comes out and pulling down a little bit of tea that she still had left from the matriarch. She brews up a pot. And I think as she starts sipping it, she says, Dawson, if you're out there, I think I'm ready to go home.
I think there's just a gentle sort of rumble at your feet.
So I think that Dagriel and Toland are kind of tied up for at least the close long term. So I do think I want to do Dagriel first, and then we're going to finish with Toland. Dagriel.
Yeah, I think when you cut to Dagriel, you don't really see Dagriel. What you see is a scholar in robes shooting across the room. And then you see Dagriel following up and pulling him up by his collar and going, "I told you so!" and sort of setting him down sort of violently in his chair, and turning around to the other ones, and she goes, "Why do you always make me resort to violence? You," and she turns to the other people who are all standing there, and she goes, "We have to go through this step by step. We can't get this wrong." And you see she's in the library, and it's that sort of weird mix of the assassin, like you can see there's a librarian there, but they clearly are, one of the assassins for the librarian thing. But the rest of them are the scholars from school, and they're working on a project. And so this is Dagriel, and she's at school there. And yeah, this is Dagriel in a group project. So anyway,
So
the violence comes out.
Arriving there on the island, joining up, meeting the crocodile god who watches up over everything. It's the like all the buildings that have been smashed together to make this place, meeting the gods, and getting hired on as faculty by this incredibly cranky guy as part of that.
Yes.
And Toland, you there for that first part, like you arrive, it is this wild, crazy university that seems to be made out of an assassin's guild that has expanded and changed. So what do we see for you long term?
I think the whole group of travelers probably stays for a while, learns as much as they can, but like knows that they have a duty to go back to Carrick Minor and bring all this information back. So, they reluctantly leave Dagriel behind because she is clearly in her element and there's no dragging her away. And return back to Carrick Minor. And I think that Toland gets to work like implementing all of the weird ideas that he's picked up. And and bringing in all of the weird people who are, you know, outcast or, you know, from their own people or otherwise, like Carrick Minor has always been good at taking in strays, and Tullen embraces that more than most. And I think over time, like, Carrick Minor is only a dwarf settlement in name. I think it's a cosmopolitan, many species. You see buildings of all different kinds in the mine, but also on the mountain itself. I think there's probably Tullen probably takes a lot of criticism for that because, you know, it's pretty clear that he's not the only one responsible for this, but definitely a driving force behind it just becoming less and less a dwarf city that has invited a few other people in and just a city of all peoples.
The elves settling up in the lands below the mountain, becoming part of it. The gnolls joining up finally, embracing and joining with your thing. The Tengu as well, building pathways up to perches at the top of the mountain so they can come and go.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that he does eventually awkwardly court where it is very awkward, and like I was gonna say I think they each like stay with their own people, but I don't think that's the case. I think they each sort of move back and forth between the two,
like
the
a
two
constant
groups.
awkward
Yeah.
kind of courtship that goes on for a long time.
Yes.
I love it.
I think it is awkward and constant on both sides, honestly.
Absolutely.
It's not just Tullen.
No, she was pretty awkward. So yeah, I think you're right on the money. That's our series. 23 episodes, session 0 and 22. This is a great game. This is a great group of players for this game. Really, really dynamite. Just very pleased that we decided to run this, and very pleased that we decided to do a second part of it, because it's definitely really good, and I definitely need to write up a review of it. It's really, really, really strong. So we're just going to end with stars. Just throwing those out there. Anything you want to say? Last bit. Again, we're going to katana it. So, Tolan.
Wow. I mean, stars to everybody for this. Wow. I mean, obviously, stars to Patrick for the speech, and to Tyler for the like the story of Grunheld, and for the last scene of obviously Daggerel both fighting and I was gonna say scullery, but it's late.
It's a very active verb when Daggerel does it.
Yeah.
That's true. And Lo, you for actually like bringing in so many elements into all of this, like just like
I like wild anything goes high fantasy, so this is really my wheelhouse.
Yes, this is
awesome. Dagriel.
Yeah, I think I'm going to reiterate everything that Colin said. I just want to say that I appreciate the awkward getting around to the point so that Fishbonita and Dagriel didn't have to, go ahead and push him back into the room and tell him, that was good. That was very good. It made it more sincere and not forced at all. So that was good. I liked the sort of bittersweet end for Grunheld. Of she was true to her ways all the way there, and it was good, and there was a lot of pathos in it. And I will always treasure the relationship between Grunheld and the Knoll matriarch. They were an awesome combo. Dawson, great ending. The Council of Foundations was really cool, and then the Foundations of Foundations, that was even, so very, very neat. The speech was a lot to think about, and I just love the idea that then Talon built a city full of all kinds of people on top of the mountain, and you're the one supporting it. Yes. There's it's great. Also, the trip to the Well of Souls was awesome. Was pretty cool, really cool. And I have to say that we are very good at building things up in a collaborative manner, and we did a lot of dynamite work with that today. And I had a lot of fun. I like the characters. I like the player characters, and I love a lot of the NPCs. And I'll miss this game. I will miss it a lot. And yeah, if I don't think that we can come back to play it, but I always have a very super fun, like, I would like to play Mountain Home again kind of thing. So don't know if it'll ever live up to this campaign though.
Yeah, that's the problem when you hit a high note. It's you're like, ooh, do we risk it and play it again?
Risk it? Then we're all sad and no one knows why. Yeah, got
it. Dawson?
Yeah, this whole session was great. There's so much with the factions and the entanglements in this game where you're just constantly dealing with like very present and immediate problems. But I love how everyone this session really leaned into the ideas of like legacy and long-term growth and change, from like our discussions about like what does justice mean to us, how do we deal with those that have been our enemies, to like my push with like the spiritual stuff and how the mountain moves us forward, just everything building the long-term story of Grunheld was great. The Well of Souls was super awesome. Like that was a great answer to what it was, and also there was like a dying angel embedded in the ceiling as like a globe light, and that was amazing. Ethan, I have loved collaborating and bouncing off of Tolan this whole campaign, and I so appreciate that like you just came in and totally changed my plan for the end. Like, I'm sitting here scrambling during the session, like, I have to rewrite this speech because it's not just dwarves anymore. But it made so much sense. It was so perfect, and just, like, the sort of thing that Tolan has done to Dawson over and over and over again. Sherry, I've last session and this session, I've really liked seeing where all of the, like, underlayers of Dagriel have brought out a whole new side of her, and how she was sort of confused and I think thrown off by it last time, but this time she was just like leaning into it, and seeing your excitement for going out there and you choosing to go off to the assassin college, it's just I adore that. That was amazing on multiple levels. And Tyler, the long story of Grunheld was great. We've talked and reminisced so much about your family. It was a really neat impact at the end to see them actually show up and see you interacting with her, even if it was just briefly. And I love that Grunheld was complicated and very self-assured even to the end. Like, you didn't make her this moral exemplar. Like, she had some problems. She definitely held on to power too long. She was a little greedy about it. You know, she's a complicated character. But then just to go like lay down and prepare for the next chapter at the end was that's a great way to end it. It was all awesome. I loved it.
And Grunheld.
This was an amazing campaign. Oh my god! I enjoyed watching us build the home, deal with how those factions became a part of us. We were such an open group, and it was. I don't know if other people would look at factions and go from there, going, "Okay, we're going to make them all our friends." And we sort of went with this multicultural view, and from the beginning saying, we're not making the old home, we're making the new home. And the character development, we saw amazing arcs. Dawson's arc from kind of petty and argumentative to taking on more, and it was a constant move, taking on more, becoming deeper, reaching a point where he had a purpose and believed in it and spread that purpose out. A character with flaws that became this amazing, deep, interesting person. Watching Dagriel from this, pugilistic scholar, full of just excitement and everything's new and it's going to be amazing, and watching that kind of growth and complication over what things were coming up and what that means as you delve into kind of running a place, what responsibility means, and seeing that change her. That is so beautifully well. It was done with such nuance that led to a place that was so real and perfect. It was, I have done what I'm doing. It's time for me to move on. I have other horizons. It was gorgeous. And 3 characters that were, full of flaws. And Toland being a really good person, dealing with them and always being a voice from a space of good in complicated and difficult situations. You could look to Toland as someone who was a moral sinner. And even though situation would change and how Toland addressed them would change, you knew that Toland was doing it from a place of goodness. And that was spectacular. Watching that character and seeing the payoff at the, as it went to everyone having such respect for Toland's opinion, finding someone to share their awkward life with, the creation. I also look back to that moment of, I've been doing so much, I don't know what to do now, as such a big pivotal moment for that character of, I'm always driving, I don't know what I'm doing now, give me something to do. Toland was a character in motion, and he was magnificent. Just, lovely. And Lowell, every step of the way, it was interesting stuff. You always gave good payoff when we did well. You gave complications that were challenging, sometimes morally challenging, sometimes politically challenging. NPCs that were so engaging, we kept going back to them. Our NPCs were phenomenal. We loved them. We had them wrapped up into our whole story. And that's really neat to see. And I will say, because I broke down, in that epilogue.
Yeah.
I love Grunheld. The person she was, I really love. She cared so much about that community. Even, to a fault of thinking she would be the only thing that could keep it together, or had to be in the center of it. But she cared so much. And watching that go, I mean, it broke me down to see her pass.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Great stuff. Great campaign. And now for the last time for Mountain Home, I'm going to stop the recording.